Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Brown?
I'm going to try to be done by 4:30.
Okay.
Okay. Give me a chance. I'll try to get. Dr. Kruse, I don't think came planning to stay this evening. Yeah,
No.
I didn't think so. So, yeah, I'll try to get through this. If I may approach the witness, I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way.
You may.
I'm going to show you three exhibits, A, B, and C. You can take a look at those for me. What is A?
A is my CV.
Is that up to date?
I've since earned a certificate at Drake University in the education portion that I recently updated it with, but other than that, it's appropriate.
What is B?
B is, it starts with that letter to Deputy Hemastaff about his request for photographs and then continues into my autopsy report.
Is B the entirety of your autopsy report?
Yes.
And then what is C?
C is a quality assurance paper as part of our standard protocol at my office. All cases that are deemed homicide are formally reviewed by another pathologist in our office.
Is that a record that's normally maintained in your office as part of your certification?
Yes.
Okay. In as much as they're not admitted, we'd offer A, B, and C.
Any objection? They will be admitted.
All right. Dr. Kruse, you were asked about a deposition where it was page 19. Do you recall? It was just a minute ago.
Yes.
All right. And on the page, do you have that page in front of you?
No.
You guys have that up? Please. I'm not connected. Page 19.
Would you mind if we just showed this copy just to
Page 19 of what?
Approach, please.
You may. Her testimony.
Thank you.
See page 19 of the deposition?
Yes.
All right. And then was lines, I think, 8 through 11 you were asked to review.
Yes.
In lines 8 through 11, you said that she could have pulled it out of her once, meaning the rake, correct?
Yes.
All right, the next sentence is, the difficulty of that in someone's back with the depth of the tines to me seems incredibly unlikely. True?
Yes.
All right, then what's the last line? I don't believe that was mentioned. What was the last comment that you made in that deposition on page 19?
I say, and then the thought that she fell on it again, pulled it out, and again, it's just not a feasible possibility.
Okay. Any of those opinions or characterizations, have those changed for you at all over this course of time?
No.
Okay. All right, I want to talk a bit about the process that you follow at the medical examiner's office. Where is the medical examiner's office?
Ankeny, Iowa?
And are there other forensic pathologists that work there?
Yes.
How many?
At the time, there were 3 other forensic pathologists.
Okay, and currently there's also 3 others other than you, is that right?
There are 4 others now.
Sorry, I missed one. And who is the state medical examiner?
Dr. Dennis Klein?
And would Dr. Klein have been the doctor that hired you?
Yes.
All right. And as you have other assistants at the medical examiner's office, can you just briefly describe that for the court?
Sure. So in terms of our office, we have Dr. Dennis Klein. He is the chief state medical examiner. We have Dr. Jonathan Thompson. He's the deputy state medical examiner. He's also the one who formally reviewed my report. At the time, Dr. Michelle Catalier was the other associate state medical examiner with me. Currently, the associate state medical examiners are Dr. Jacob Smith and Dr. Allison Hade.
And as part of your work and routine in examining cases, do you frequently consult with one another?
Yes.
Okay, does that happen on a daily basis?
Yes.
Anytime you might have a difficult case or something that might be confusing to you, can you rely on them to help you?
Yes.
And in this case, whenever you did the autopsy of Amy Mullis, would that same support system have been in place for you?
Yes.
Do you also have the use of investigators in your office?
Yes.
What does an investigator in the medical examiner's office do?
Our medico-legal death investigators are each assigned one person to a case. They will communicate with law enforcement. They gather law enforcement reports, medical records. They talk to family and gather any other information that we may need for our determination of cause and manner of death.
And would you have had that resource available to you in the investigation and the autopsy of Amy Mullis?
Yes.
Is there a quality control process in place at the medical examiner's office?
Yes.
Describe that for us, please.
Part of our regular quality control is for any case for both cause and manner are undetermined, or where manner is homicide, the case is formally reviewed by one of the other pathologists. They fill out a form where they say if photographs, documentation, our ultimate opinion are all correct, and if they agree, and then they sign that form. We also review random reports throughout the year per name guidelines on cases that are natural, suicide, and accident.
You had mentioned earlier in your direct that you were performing more than one autopsy at the same time as Amy Mullis. Is that right?
To the best of my recollection, yes, that's standard.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at. Is that a standard practice?
Yes.
Is there any concern in your mind that cases get confused or that creates any type of issue with either one of those cases?
Never. That's my normal day.
Okay. And do the other pathologists, the forensic pathologists in your office, do the same thing?
Yes.
And at those autopsies, even though you're doing more than one, do you have the resources available to you that you've just described?
Yes.
Now, from beginning to end on autopsy, you were asked that the physical autopsy that you do was about 2 to 3 hours. Is that correct?
Correct.
But the whole process takes much longer than that. Isn't that true?
Yes.
Can you describe that for the court, please?
The physical autopsy itself is really the shortest portion of the whole process. The autopsy examination is performed with the photographs and the collection of evidence and other items. I then write my report. I review photographs as part of that report writing process, and then I wait for the results of any ancillary testing to return, such as toxicology, histology, looking at things under the microscope. That takes time, can take a matter of weeks. During that time, law enforcement reports, medical record reports, any other information is gathered as well and then reviewed by me. Once everything is back, everything is re-reviewed by me. My report is edited and then ultimately finalized. Since, for example, in this case, since it was a homicide, before the report was officially finalized, it received a QA by Dr. Thompson.
All right, so what date did this case present to you? What was the first day you would have started working on it?
The autopsy was performed on November 12th of 2018.
And when did you sign out the final report?
The final report was signed on December 17th of 2018.
So nearly a month.
Yes.
And at any point in that time frame, if you would have received other information that would have either contradicted your findings or caused you to change your opinions, would you have done that?
Yes.
Since the autopsy report has been finalized, you've been provided a lot of other information, correct?
Yes.
You've reviewed a report that essentially has criticized your findings. Is that true?
Objection, Your Honor. This goes to the issue raised about cabining her opinions to her 2023 deposition.
I think you opened the door on that, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Brown, do you want to respond?
Well, yeah. I mean, they want to sit here and complain about Dr. Kruse's opinions. They keep pigeonholing her to only go to the 2023. Clearly, they have other information that they're going to offer that criticizes Dr. Kruse's opinions. She has reviewed that information, and I expect her testimony to be that she has not changed her opinion even based upon that. That's what I'm getting at. They cannot open this door and then close it on us. This is clearly admissible.
This has to do with the court's pretrial ruling about the purposes for which she was designated in this case, and her designations not designating her as a cross-expert to respond on the applicant's experts, Your Honor. I mean, if the court determines I opened the door in my exam, while I might disagree, I would respect that, but this was the court's pretrial ruling.
And I agree, which is why I was surprised by some of your questions that we were going there. I'm just looking back at my notes, but I understood some of your questions to be quite broad and to open the door. So I think this question, at least, is fair. So the objection's going to be overruled. Do you remember the question at this point?
I would ask that it be read back.
Well, and there was an objection, so it'll have to be. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've reviewed a report that essentially has criticized your findings. Is that the...
May I continue with that, Judge?
you may.
Okay, you've reviewed a report that has essentially criticized your findings in this case, correct?
Yes.
Has that, and you've done a thorough review of that report?
Yes.
Is that from Dr. Hammers?
Yes.
And has that review caused you to change any of the opinions that you've given in this case?
No.
During an autopsy, there was some questions that you were asked concerning law enforcement being present.
Yes.
How often does that happen in autopsies that you perform?
On a pretty regular basis, I imagine potentially weekly.
And is that something your office invites?
Yes.
That you want that assistance?
Yes.
What's the purpose of a law enforcement officer being at the autopsy?
Law enforcement officers can learn a lot from the autopsy. We encourage them to come. They interact a lot with family and may learn how to better investigate a case, to not disturb the body in a certain way that might affect us at autopsy. We think they benefit greatly from it. Also in terms of, wound interpretation or any other sort of questions, if they're available at time of autopsy, that's beneficial to us.
And other than Deputy Hemus, was there any other law enforcement that you consulted during the autopsy of Amy Mullis?
No.
Okay. And concerning how Amy Mullis was found, you've been provided a description of that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know the source of that information?
It's my understanding the source is her family, her son, and her husband.
Okay. Is there any, as far as you know, any law enforcement that made those observations?
No.
Okay, Dr. Kruse, there were some notes that were reviewed with you by counsel that related to a conversation you had with John Turbot.
Yes.
There was a comment in there concerning injuries being consistent with the fall.
Yes.
What was that? What were you referencing?
Well, those are his notes. And as we established earlier today, the blunt force injury she sustained could have been from a fall.
So the blunt force being what? The injury to the chin?
Correct. Her abrasions and her contusions.
You were not meaning to reference the injuries from the tines of the rake?
No.
Okay. Dr. Thompson is the local, or was the local medical examiner at the time of Amy Mullis' death?
Yes, he's a county medical examiner who I believe was covering for Delaware County while the regular medical examiner was out of town.
Just to put this into context, every county has its own county medical examiner, is that right?
Yes.
And this is usually just a local doctor that goes through some basic training.
Yes, they have to be a physician, and experience and training vary.
Right, and that training is provided by your office.
Yes.
Dr. Thompson would not be qualified to perform the examination that you perform, correct?
Correct.
Right. They're just local boots on the ground, so to speak.
Yes, and who have medical training to assist them with their judgment.
Prior to November of 2023, did you know Dr. Thompson personally?
No.
Had you ever worked with him before, as long as you know? Had you ever worked with him at all?
No.
Was he the first person that brought this information to your attention that there were injuries that he thought were suspicious?
We have a morgue attendant who answers our phone at the office who would have connected me with Dr. Thompson. The only other person who would say that beforehand would be just someone letting me know Dr. Thompson called. He has concerns, give him a call back. But direct concerns came from him.
And you would certainly consider that, at least initially in your examination of Amy Mullis, correct?
I respect his medical opinion.
As you would if any other autopsy where the county medical examiner would provide you some information, correct?
Correct.
You were asked about the toxicology panel?
Yes.
All right. I get a couple questions with that, and I'm just about done. You were asked whether or not you looked for prescription medications.
Yes.
All right. You said no.
Some were included on that basic panel, but outside of prescription medications of abuse.
I don't think you were asked why you didn't do that. So why wouldn't you have expanded that panel with the toxicology lab that you work with?
Expanded toxicology panels are ordered when the drugs in a person's system may have contributed to their death or directly caused a person's death. In a case where someone has an injury that caused their death, drugs within their system are usually irrelevant. In this case, I deemed them non-contributory to Ms. Mullis's death. We order toxicology routinely, so I ordered the basic panel. The expanded panel, which would be, in addition to most cases, was not appropriate at all in this case. I knew her cause and manner of death at the end of autopsy.
And you would have access to even consulting with a forensic toxicologist if needed, is that right?
Yes.
Did you feel that was necessary in this case at all?
No.
And context, you were asked about the context of how the body was found and where it was found. I believe you said that you did not consider that at all, or that didn't factor into your opinions?
Correct.
Okay, can you tell us why not?
I am able to interpret wounds on a person's body. Information about how a person was found needs to be considered carefully. I did not know those things to be true. The way the handle was sticking out of Ms. Mullis has no bearing on the fact that she was impaled with a corn rake more than once. It doesn't change my cause of death. It doesn't change my manner of death.
And whenever you say she was impaled with a corn rake theoretically could have been swung, correct?
Yes.
Could have been pushed into her?
Yes.
Like a knife?
Yes.
Right? Or in some other way, correct?
Yes.
You know that the rake was, the rake was what caused the injuries that caused her death, correct?
Yes.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any redirect?
Extremely briefly, Your Honor. You've described the quality control process at the medical examiner's office, Dr. Kruse. Did the quality control process at the medical examiner's office catch this error that you described in your opinion section that was I think you used the word, and I don't want to misstate your testimony, but an obvious error or a glaring error?
Yeah, I don't remember if I used those words either, but no, it did not catch the error.
That's an error that you immediately recognized in re-reviewing your report. Is that right?
I did.
Okay. Is it your belief that the quality control process in place at the medical examiner's office is consistent with other quality control practices across forensic pathology?
It's in keeping with requirements by the National Association of Medical Examiners. I don't know what other offices do.
You testified that you later learned some information about how Ms. Mullis was found, and I think it was your testimony that the source of that information was members of the Mullis family. Is that right?
Yes.
Did anyone ever provide to you recorded interviews of Todd Mullis and Tristan Mullis talking about this issue?
Not that I remember.
As of your deposition in 2023, did you have any idea what Todd Mullis and Tristan Mullis had said to law enforcement about this issue? In terms of directly from them?
Not that I recall.
And you described that you had resources at the medical examiner's office that were at your disposal to conduct a further investigation into this case. Is that right?
We have investigators who can help me gather information about the case.
You told me earlier in your exam, which might feel like a long time ago to both of us, that there was no requirement after the physical examination portion of your autopsy for you to make your findings at that time. Is that right?
Correct.
And in fact, I think your testimony was that that's the shortest part of the process, correct?
The autopsy itself is, yes.
The physical autopsy isn't even really the end of your basic process for collecting information about an investigation. Is that right?
Correct. I gather information after the autopsy and consider all that information before finalizing my report. In this case, my opinion always stayed the same.
In this case, you made your determination after the physical examination and did not change it after that.
Correct.
No other questions, Your Honor. One moment, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
Of course. Do you guys have anything else?
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Okay.
Your Honor, we are seeking to admit the exhibits from today, which I think if the parties are in agreement, this doesn't require more foundation or authentication. I think we can address that tomorrow potentially. I just don't want to lose my chance to solve that problem, but I don't believe there is an issue with anything we offered.
Yes. Yes, Your Honor. I think the parties had talked informally during the break, and we came to an agreement on all the exhibits that were referenced, I believe. If there's a specific exhibit you want to clarify, otherwise.
I don't want to waste the court's time with this at 4:40, so I think the parties are in agreement. They've conferred, and we can address that tomorrow with the court's permission.
That's fine with me, as long as you guys are comfortable that we won't have any hiccups with it.
I think we're fine, Your Honor. We've conferred, Your Honor.
Okay. Any recross, Mr. Brown?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Dr. Kruse, you may step down. Thank you. It is time to recess for the day. We'll plan on picking back up tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Okay. Thank you. Have a nice evening.